Equity Group have just released their Q1 results. That's 15.4 billion profit after tax. And I want to have a conversation with the Group MD with a keen focus first on how the macros have affected them and how the region is also doing. But above that, I want to give you some highlights on what he talked about during that particular release.
Our deposits are up 7% to 1.3 billion. Loans up 3% to 800 billion. And total assets to nearly 1.8 trillion.
Micro enterprises can't be asked kickback, not in this bank. This is a corruption-free environment. And customers must be given services without expectations of rewards and inducements.
Dr. James Mwangi, glad to have you on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. And it seems like this is a phenomenal time where we have to meet at your office and have this conversation.
I always look forward to this moment.
Oh, I love this. I love this. And we also look forward to hosting you. I want to start from this. There's so many things happening in the globe. On a larger scale, when you look at the geopolitics and then coming down to the region where you operate, there's always moving parts here and there. Sometimes it's the politics of the day, sometimes it's the economies of the day, the inflations. I don't know from where you sit as a group, what is this that you keep pointing with your team that we need to be careful about? What are you concerned most about?
I think we are most concerned about what we are seeing as a global reset.
Yeah.
The current global economic framework was set in 1947 after the Second World War. Mm-hmm. But it has been questioned whether it's serving a meaningful purpose.
Yeah.
And we see it's now driving geopolitics. Mm-hmm. And beyond geopolitics, there is the question of multilateral institutions and their law, whether it's the UN, the Bretton Woods institution, the NATO. Yeah. And also there is question of trade arrangements that were set in place to ensure the world never gets to war again. Mm-hmm. But that is what has really watered down that framework. Yeah. Because the signatories seems to have negated the position. We have the conflict with Russia, Ukraine, we have Israel and Palestine. We have tension between India and Pakistan. Close home, we are seeing the Great Lakes challenges, whether it's Somalia, whether it's DRC, whether it's Sudan. And so the question is, this framework is not serving the purpose it was meant for. But it has also created haves and have-nots, broken the world into the global north and the global south. And the people are saying, is this platform serving? So that's what we are really tracking. But we have also observed that three more forces of change has come. The first one is climate change.
Absolutely.
It has acquired another life, which is an existential threat to the world. And people are saying, if we don't pay attention here, we don't know how the future look like. And that, again, is stressing. And of course, geopolitics has been really aggravated by the position the US have taken of US first, and then rebalancing their trade relationships using tariffs. And that essentially has broken trade patterns, but more importantly, put into question relationships and trust.
Absolutely.
And once trust is lost, then so those are the things that have ramification on the economy. But they are the drivers of inflation, exchange rate, and interest rates. And so we are tracking them.
I love that context that you brought in, and knowing very well when it comes to this region, you're at the heart of finance and business, if I may say that. And we have these changes that we have seen in the geopolitics, as you've seen in the global north, for example, the AGOAs of today. But also here in Africa, we're talking about the Africa Free Intercontinental Trade Area. We're also talking about really the East Africa community and all that. Are you seeing any progress in this? Because you're in that region, and I'm sure you're at the center of conversations in that.
I was very privileged in 2003 to be part of the team that was developing the long-term development a vision of this country, Vision 2030, and then served it for 15 years as the chairman of the delivery board. As a result, I've been privileged then to understand how economies behave. And equity has come of size as a financial catalyst to help me understand this. We're seeing a huge opportunity in East and Central Africa. To some of us, we see it as a Southeast Asia movement. When that region, whether it's Taiwan, whether it's Singapore, whether it's Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, they took off. When you look at DRC, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, grouped together, they have an average growth rate of 7%, making this region the fastest growing region in the world.
Wow.
But the underlying growth is because of massive infrastructure that is being built in the region. So then infrastructure is becoming an enabler for the private sector. And so then second wave we'll see is of the private sector transforming the agricultural potential of this region, adding value to the natural resources, particularly the strategic resources, minerals of DRC, and also development of energy and manufacturing in this region. So when we look at it that way, we then see a long horizon of value creation that can support the private sector. We're seeing a huge headroom for growth for the private sector. And that we asked ourselves, what contribution can we make? And just to say a few, we're privileged to have friends in the Bretton Woods institution. And we challenged the Bretton Woods institution, can we bring the private sector on the table as the financier of development going forward? And that concept has been bought by the Madrid Club of former president. They have bought into it. The UN African ambassadors have joined. And all of us are going to Spain that year, June, to go and put a common position that let's create an enabling environment for the private sector to be the engine of economic transformation. And I hope we in this region will take advantage to create the appropriate environment in each of the nations to attract capital, because our region has now a reputation of being the fastest growing region in the world and has resources that can allow a long runway of value creation for the private sector.
And that's the opportunity right there. Last time we spoke with you, you had touched on the Africa Recovery and Resilience Plan. Are you channeling this energy through that still?
Thank you very much. We recognized that the best thing is to use our framework to attract others. So we have worked with the African Union Secretariat for the African Continental Free Trade Area. And we have signed an agreement as an execution partner. We have signed with the 16 development banks and say, let's finance growth in this region using this framework. We are in partnership with IFC and IMF and the World Bank and say, let's also bring the countries in this region to develop the right policies to make them attractive for private sector investment. So I would say the building blocks are now in place to anchor and support the African Recovery and Resilience Plan as the private sector-led development for East and Central Africa.
Okay, lovely. Let's now come down a little bit to the region that you see. And part of the results that you released today, I felt like there was a big mixed bag. There were places where we were celebrating a lot, and there's a lot of celebration as well, even in the Kenyan market as well, seeing some of the resilience that has been executed here. And I wanted to paint for us a picture of how you, when you look at your subsidiaries, how they're faring on in a quick nutshell.
You are right, it's a mixed bag. But we're very excited that Kenya has shown very visible signs of recovery. We have seen for the first time in 3 years a growth in loan book
Wow.
We have also seen that first quarter, its profit is up 50%, despite reducing interest rates on all its customers by 300 basis points. So the efficiencies have kicked on.
Excellent.
But it's the recovery of Tanzania
Yeah.
that is most exciting, that it's able to increase its profit for the first quarter by 540%.
Wow.
And reduce its non-performing loans from 39% to 3%.
That was commendable.
The efficiency in Rwanda, where it is praying at a cost-income ratio of 38%, yet registering a growth rate of 22% on deposit and 18% of loan, is also enviable.
Wow.
But also Uganda, which had dragged a little bit, has shown remarkable turnaround with 18% growth in profit and also a stable growth in deposit and loan. So I would say those ones are in one category.
Yeah.
But we also have appreciated how defensive DLC has become.
Okay.
Everybody was expecting the DLC will show huge strain, but we recognize the deposits have grown by 9%, loans have grown by 14%.
Yes.
So it's a growth story.
Okay.
But it's overwhelmed by the cost of operating in a fragile environment. The cost of operating in, particularly in Eastern DRC, is much higher. And that has caused the profit to slow down and almost become negative. But that is really temporary. We see that that is purely because of the cost of operating in a fragile environment because of conflict. So we have really to take care of our staff. We have to really fortify security. We have to take care of people, shift people. But we are glad that the US has announced that we are on the verge of an agreement between all the parties in the region. And we are hoping that we'll see that before the end of this week. There is a promise of before 30th May.
Yeah, something will come up.
Yeah, so that will then change. Of course, we have South Sudan, which is struggling. We all know that it has not been able to export its oil. 98% of its revenue comes from oil, but because of the war in Sudan, then it's not able to export. We are optimistic that it's resumption of export of trade. As a result, inflation has become a major problem. And last year, inflation accounting resulted in a profit of 3 billion. That's not operating income. So when you remove that this year it is zero, then you see as if the profit has come down. But if you remove the inflation accounting, the profit has of the group has grown by 8%.